Okay, so the screen should be visible now, and yeah, let's start with the quickly with the agenda for today. Um, So what's the agenda? Agenda is to learn about the HTTP, and then I think I have slides itself. So learn about the HTTP, and then that yeah, and then few of the methods of the HTTP like get and post method, and then we'll look at the headers, the HTTP request headers, and then let me see if someone everyone is good. And then we'll look at the HTTP request and response headers, and then we'll look at how the HTTP headers can be kind of misused by the attacker, and then we'll jump out to the HTTPS part where we'll kind of understand about the first we'll understand about the user agent analysis, about the cookies, and then we'll learn about the HTTPS, how the SSL and TLS decryption can be done, and what are the scenarios where let's say you have a client and there has been certain malware attack, and you need to kind of decrypt the HTTPS traffic. So how that can be done, and if that cannot be done, then in that case, how to handle the incident. So we'll look at that. We'll look at the certificate part, like how SSL TLS certificates are set up. And once that's done, we will be actually looking at few of the CTF, network-based CTF, once the HTTPS part is done. And then we'll jump out to the email delivery part, like how the email is set up and email tracing and all. And then how it's kind of it will be going on. Okay. So thing is that let's quickly jump out to the HTTP part and start our session for today. So agenda for now is actually HTTP. Okay. Give me 1 second. Okay. So yesterday we kind of checked out like how to kind of decode a URL, like HTTP URL. Okay. So when we found out that, okay, let's say this is the domain that we are looking for, which is HTTPS, and then something like this m.a.mail.google.com. So what we found is that this is the protocol part of the URL, like HTTP or HTTPS, and this is the subdomain part. Now this is the parent domain, which is google.com, and the port number we can specify like 8080, like in this case over here, or if it is like running either on 443 or 80, we don't need to specify that. If we have just specified HTTP or HTTPS, the browser will understand that it needs to kind of connect to the destination port 443 or 80 number. Okay. Now we once that's done, that part is done, then this is the folder name from where the file is getting served. Okay. And then this is the file like index.html. Okay. And now after index.html, let's say this index.html is kind of is accepting few variables. So in that case, what will happen, like we'll first put a question mark, and then we'll start with the variables. Like this will be the first key one and its value. And to separate out 2 or 3 variables, what we do is that we use the ampersand sign. So we say key equal to 1 ampersand, and then the next variable, which is key 2, and the value is 5. And that's how the thing goes on. So this is actually a part of the get header, like how the get requests look like. We'll look at in much more detail, but this is how we basically decode the URL. And now let's jump on how is basically like the HTTPS or HTTP website is normally kind of set up. Okay, so we'll look at that now. So let me just write the headline. Okay, so what's the first thing we do? So to serve any kind of URL, the first thing we do is like we buy a domain. Okay, so we buy a domain from registrar. Okay, so the first thing is like we buy a domain, and thing is like, let's say I bought domain abc.com from godaddy.com. So I'll do that. I'll just go to GoDaddy and kind of take a subscription, let's say for a year, and I will buy a domain abc.com from there. Okay. Now, once that is done, what the next part, what I need to do is that once I have got hold of my abc.com, I will go to my configuration of abc.com, and over there, what I will do is that I will set a DNS a record. Okay. I'll set a DNS a record. And what is a record? What's the IP address it will contain? It will have an IP address. It will points to the web server. Okay, hosting web server. Okay, so we'll set a DNS a record with an IP address that will point out to the hosting web server. So now the thing is that once the website is up, and let's say a client needs to visit abc.com, so what they need to do is that there will be a DNS query that will be kind of made out from their system, and which will return them the IP address of my hosting web server. And once they have got hold of the hosting web server, their computer will connect to my web server, and kind of either get the file or post some files. Okay, so that's the second part. And now thing is that how to kind of set up the web server, like what files need to be served and all. So what we do is that we basically so let's say we are using Apache web server for example. Okay, yesterday we looked at like without using Apache web server, like Python has inbuilt functionality to run a web server. So we'll look at that. But here thing is that we'll let's suppose that the system has well-known web server pre-installed like Apache. So how we will be kind of configuring that? So what we will do is that we will tell the Apache to listen for HTTP connection, okay, over certain ports, like let's say by default it will be 80, but let's say if we want that web page to be served on a different port, let's say we'll say the Apache web server that Apache, you need to kind of listen for HTTP protocol over port number 8080, something like that. Okay. Now, once that's done, what we will do is that there is a specific folder called var/var/www. Okay. So this starts from the root file. So what I am talking about right now is the Linux system. Okay. So in the Linux system, there is a specific file, which is the specific folder, which is /var/www. And what you need to do is that either you can put the index.html file inside this folder, www, or what you do is that let's say you create a folder, or you create a subfolder in that. So let's say a subfolder is created with the name my site. Okay, and in that what you do is that you put the file index.html. Okay, so this is how this is kind of basic steps by which you can kind of start let's say a web server on a Linux host. Okay, and now the thing is that, as I told earlier, so let's say the website looks like HTTP and then mysite.com colon 8080, and then the hard drive part, like whatever the folder you have created and whatever file you want to serve from there, like index.html. So this is how we will kind of normally kind of setting up a HTTPS website. Okay, so it's all started buying a domain, setting a DNS a record that the IP address will point out to the hosting web server.